Hello and welcome to The Insider, a show designed to clue you into the biggest news, events, and announcements inside the video games industry, discussing with you some things you may know, some things you may not, and the glue that holds it all together is a little bit of my own opinion. My name is Paul James, thank you very much for watching, and let's get for the episode. So we've known about the Apple Arcade concept for a few months now, but it was at the most recent Apple event just this week where Apple finally decided to pull the trigger on it. In an event that featured the iPhone 11, a new model of the iPad, Macs, Apple TV, and all the usual Apple fare, they spent a really sizable and really prominent portion of that event discussing the Apple Arcade, their new gaming, Game Pass kind of parallel concept. In this week's episode of The Insider, we're going to break down what was said, what we know, some facts. We're going to look at some of the Aussie representation, some of the world's representation in this, and the general reactions, what it should mean for you as a gamer, and we'll go into it from there. So let's get into it.
With Apple Arcade, we've joined forces with the world's most innovative game developers to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Let's first begin with the raw facts. So, the Apple Arcade, it's coming September 19th/20th, depending on your region in the world. So next week, to all the key Apple pieces of hardware. That means iPhones, iPad, Apple TV, the lot. Exactly what you'd expect. Macs, of course, as well. And it's going to be coming for a cost of $7.99 a month. So less than Netflix, less than Game Pass, except for their kind of current little $1 a month deals. It's less than your Spotify's, it's less than Apple Music, all those sort of pieces of software that we kind of take for granted these days. $7.99 Australian dollars, less than all of those things. $4.99 for the US, and obviously other countries around the world will have their pricing, so search for yours accordingly. But this is a great value. It's going to be launching with 100 exclusives, with more coming every single month. The drop in that regard is not too dissimilar to what we see from Game Pass, what we see from Nintendo with kind of their classics rollout that they've been doing. Like I said, it's going to support all key Apple hardware, but specifically, it will support offline play as well. Those are the facts around Apple Arcade, and next we're going to dive into what the service means, what we can expect from it, the sorts of games, the sort of publishers and developer representation, and we'll go on from there.
This collection of awesome games covers so many genres and play styles, so everyone in the family can count on finding games they love on Apple Arcade.
Apple Arcade is a good service at a good value. $7.99 per month is an awesome price. It's not outrageous. It's quite good when you compare it to a lot of other services out there. And like we said, you're getting 100 games out the gate with more coming down the pipeline. Of some of those games, there are some really important, prominent, well-known developers and publishers getting involved. I've got a little list off screen here, so bear with me while I look away. We've got Konami, Ubisoft, Devolver Digital, Bandai Namco, Square Enix, Capcom, Sega, and then some really prominent mobile developers in the form of Us2, Chucklefish, and Clay. The last two not necessarily so much known for their mobile work, but they've been diving into the mobile space a little bit recently, and now they're really upping the ante somewhat. These are some great developers and publishers getting involved in the platform. It shows that they consider it a really viable, potentially thriving marketplace for them to get involved in. It should mean, in theory, that the many complaints that many of us have had about the Apple Store and equivalent over the journey will mean that the games that we know just kind of clog up the marketplace and force the really high quality stuff to kind of get missed in the shuffle. It should mean that those games now get an opportunity to really shine and thrive and actually rise to the top, be that cream on the cake, where they've kind of been ignored over the journey for whatever reason. Now you're going to get those games essentially for free, and you can really dive in and try these things without fear of any consequence. It's a great concept. It looks like it's going to be really well executed, and it's one to consider when it launches next week.
These three talented partners join so many more amazing developers bringing new games to Apple Arcade this year.
What the Apple Arcade also does is really bolster the prospect of our digital future. Of course, we've been talking about the digital future in this show and Patched, and other people have been speaking about it on their various platforms all around the internet, be it written, video, podcasts, whatever the case may be. We've been talking about this digital future for a long, long time now because it makes sense. Game Pass has been leading the charge. Obviously, Steam is just a digital platform. And there's so many other developers and publishers that are starting to establish their own sort of methods. So what Apple Arcade is doing is right in line with that at a really affordable price, and it's giving us a lot of bang for our buck. Now, how long will people latch onto it? That remains to be seen. Will they be able to continue to deliver excellent products on mobile? What happens to the exclusivity around these games? Because again, they're talking about 100 exclusives, but does that mean that they are going to remain exclusive perpetually? Or is there timed exclusivity? Is it the same for every game before it suddenly drops on Android? Or maybe some of these games that look, quite obviously built upon a console/PC backbone, how long is it going to be before those games then jump across to the PC and consoles? Those are some questions that still need answering. I'm curious to know if it's a case-by-case basis or a hard and fast. You sign this deal, it's 6 months, for example. I'm making that number up. 6 months exclusivity to Apple Arcade, and then after that, do what you like. You can remain on our platform, of course, but do what you like at that point. I'd be really curious to see what that exclusivity kind of looks like, and it may take a few months, potentially even years, before we see how that plan plays out. Unless someone wants to come forth with that information, please do.
Apple Arcade is available starting on September 19th.
Finally, let's talk about the Aussie representation, because it was awesome. SMG, the developers behind Death Squared, they're working on Moving Out at the moment. Over the Top Tower Defense earlier this year as well. They do some awesome stuff. Aussie talent. They focused on the Australian and New Zealand representation at the conference, and in a little splash screen that Apple put up that contained about 90 different developers/publishers, we discovered that there was about 15 or 16, and SMG were the ones to identify that number, 15 or 16 different Australian or New Zealand-based developers, and surely some of those other teams as well will include a few Aussie personnel as well, that are leading the charge, really highlighting the talent in Australia and the high-quality games that are coming out of this country. Because again, this is a curated list. Apple is looking at these 100 games that they're going to launch, and they're games that they're really putting their weight behind. They believe in these games, and for so many, keep in mind the global marketplace here, the number of people developing games in their homes or in studios all around the world, and we got a fairly sizable portion of that list coming from this country. It bodes really, really well. There's some awesome games. Look for Subtle Booms, Fledgling Heroes. Look for what SMG is doing. There's a look for Necro Barista and Projection and all those sorts of things from some really talented studios in this part of the world. It's awesome. They're making great games. And if you subscribe to the Apple Arcade, whether it's for your $7.99 per month or for a monthly trial, you're going to be getting some awesome software. So go and check out those Aussie New Zealand developed games.
We hope you have a blast playing all the incredible games on Apple Arcade.
And with that, we've concluded this week's episode of The Insider. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. All those buttons are down below here, and hit that notification bell. That way you're alerted to every new video the moment it goes live on the channel. That includes Patched, The Insider, Player 2 Plays, Late Game Review, Gamer School, and a whole bunch more. There's some awesome content there, so please be sure to subscribe and go and check it out. Visit the website player2.net.au, where you'll find reviews, previews, opinion pieces, news, features, the Player 2 Writers Draft, links to our podcast series, the Player 2 Pixelcast. Patched is also in audio form, and Dev Diary, my little baby. Go and check all them out. Subscribe, give them all a 5-star review, bump them up the charts. And also check us out on Twitch, twitch.tv/player2au. Lots of weekly streams. Go and check all of that awesome stuff out. We're also on Patreon, patreon.com/player2au, and consider kicking in a few bucks. At the lower tiers, you'll get early access to episodes. At the higher tiers, you'll get monthly episode exclusives. Go and check it all out. Help support us. We're growing, and we would love for you to get behind us. Finally, there's Twitter. You can find me at Paul James Games. The website, you'll find at Player2au. And until next time, that has been Aussies kicking ass at the Apple Arcade. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.